everybody, and welcome to another video where I take a look at what light novels are popular in Japan. This time counting down the top 10 best-selling light novels for the week of February 18th to the 24th of 2019. From my last video, the last week, only 3 titles managed to remain on the list, so there's lots of new stuff to talk about, so let's get to it. At number 10, with 5,010 copies sold, volume number 6 of Maou, Toubatsu, Shita, Medachitakunai no Guildmaster ni Natta. That is, he didn't want to be the center of attention, hence, after defeating the Demon Lord, he became a Guildmaster. We do not have a license in English for this light novel series. The kingdom of Albane was blessed with the appearance of the Miracle Children, individuals with the greatest talents ever seen. Despite being around 10 years old, with abilities dozens of times stronger than the average adventurer, they managed to reach a strength score that exceeded 100,000 points, granting them the Triple S Adventurer grade. With a mere party of 5 people, they defeated the Demon Lord, regaining the kingdom's peace. After that journey, Dick Silver, the most balanced between them, racked his brain to not draw the public attention. In the end, he decided to become the guildmaster of a suburban guild as a reward, becoming its 12th successor. After 5 years, he reached his aim and then became a regular of his own guild's cafe. But one day, as he was drinking at the bar as always, the daughter of a certain aristocrat came to pay him a visit. So this one's been on the list before. Of course, it's an actual pure fantasy series. Another one of those, we've seen this a couple of times actually, the ones where, you know, the hero becomes disenfranchised or doesn't want to keep being bothered and so decides to try and lead a quiet life, but, well, trouble just always seems to come and find you. So this one, you know, again, it's 6 volumes. I would actually be really interested in checking this series out. I mean, it sounds kind of cool. I'm not really sold on the character's name, Dick Silver. Yeah, somebody could have done better with that one. But in any case, if you're familiar with this series, is it any good? You know, is it just kind of a, like, is there sort of a big storyline that he's being pulled back into the adventurer life for? Or is it just more of a, sort of like, you know, I've been killing slimes for 300 years, where it's just kind of like little things he gets drawn into that he has to solve, but he tries to solve it as quietly as possible so that he can maintain his sort of laid-back life. I'm just kind of wondering what direction this story takes. So if you're familiar with it, let me know in the comments down below. At number 9, with 5,308 copies sold, volume number 13 of Jōshi to kon'yaku rabu, dankei kazoku monogatari. Or, thanks to people on Twitter, roughly comes out to In Love with My Boss, the tale of a male-run large family. No English license for this series. It's obviously sort of a shoujo boys love type light novel series. Nei, who is the eldest of 7 brothers, was awakened by his 1-year-old brother, and while panicking, took his younger brothers to school. Afterwards, during work and with his boss, he made a mistake and ended up having to babysit his boss's niece. Or, this was from one user. Another user said, "Morning for the oldest of 7 brothers begins with the smell of milk. Woken up by my roughly 1-year-old younger brother, 7th generation, it's big trouble daily to show out my 5 younger brothers. There are those circumstances in which one would rather have gone to work with a sigh, but there are days where, in an honest mistake, I wake up with my work's skilled section chief. Rather than feel bad, in order to recover, I look after the section chief's niece." But, so, you know, this, again, thank you to a number of people on Twitter that chimed in about what this was about, what the title was about. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of get the gist. It's like he's got this big, huge family, and he kind of falls in love with his boss and helps take care of his boss's niece, and yeah. So there you go. that one is on the list. You know, it's funny, the shoujo titles, like the BL or shoujo type titles, I always have the hardest time finding any information on. I mean, part of me kind of wants to start like my own sort of light novel website just to get this kind of stuff up there, because there's nothing like novel updates, light novel database, like really, like they just have nothing on these titles. So clearly you can sort of see the bias, I guess, in those particular sites, which, you know, fair enough. Most of them are driven by their users, and their users only put into the database the stuff that they know or they're reading or they're interested in. So, yeah, so in any case, that one is at number 9. At number 8, with 5,707 copies sold, volume number 4 of Mahoutsukai de Hikikomori, or Shut-In Magician. We do not have English license for the light novels. And Oji-san was reincarnated thanks to a kind goddess. He wished for a healthy body. However, for some reason, he received the cheat ability to use powerful magic instead. Even so, he rarely used the ability. When he, Shiu, turned 11, the goddess appeared and informed him, "Become an adventurer and enjoy life." He went to the royal capital in order to become an adventurer. On his way there, he met a beast mount, Ferris, who became his pet. From there, he began his new life. Shiu's world broadened little by little as he took on requests at the guild and interacted with different people at the royal capital. Shiu, the boy with a truly powerful ability, starts his easygoing life in a fluffy, different world. So this one's been on the list before. I believe the whole thing is that that's one of his abilities. It's sort of like a beast tamer or something. That's why they say fluffy new world, and why this beast joins him as he travels and stuff like that. And yeah, and I mean, it just sounds like it's kind of one of those fantasy slice of life series. I mean, obviously there is that isekai component to it, but you know, sometimes with these isekais, even though it you know, you're like the setup is isekai, I kind of think to myself, I don't even know why they bothered with the isekai element. It's almost like they only include it because they want the character to have really powerful abilities, and it's gotten to the point now where authors can't think of a different way other than to have them be reincarnated, you know? Like, I just, you know, you can be born with really powerful magic. Like, I mean, again, though, I haven't read this series. I don't know. Maybe the fact that he was an old man when he died, maybe that sort of colors his worldview a bit. Maybe that's why, you know, he had to have the goddess kick him in the can to get him out the door instead of, you know, just quietly living along his life, enjoying things. Don't know much about the series. Obviously, if you know more, I always love to hear about it in the comments down below. At number 7, with 6,064 copies sold, this one's been on the list for a couple of weeks now, and that is Shōsetsu, eigadoraemon Nobita no getsumen tansa-ki, or Doraemon the movie, Nobita's Chronicle of the Moon Exploration. Obviously, we don't have this licensed in English. We don't really seem to have a lot of Doraemon anything in English. Nobita saw a moon turn yellow last night and told his class, but they think it's funny. Doraemon gives him the Doctrine Association badge, and they discover there's life on the other side of the moon. And then a new student changed him forever. So, yeah, I mean, it's Doraemon. It just keeps on going. Like I've said in previous videos, I don't know much about the character other than, like, you see him all over the place and for quite some time. And this movie has been, like, killing it at the Japanese box office for a couple of weeks. So not too surprising that the light novel adaptation has held on to the list for several weeks now. At number 6, with 6,260 copies sold, volume number 9 of Genjitsu Shugi Yusha no Okoku Saikenki, or as we have it in English, How a Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. So yes, we do have this in English, obviously licensed by J-Novel Club. This is also one of the titles that they have a deal with 7 Seas. 7 Seas is putting out the print copies of this series. Right now, I believe J-Novel Club is basically caught up. They've released, I believe, volume number 8 at this point. So I imagine with a new volume having just come out in Japan, well, actually, I'm a couple weeks behind. So it wouldn't surprise me if J-Novel Club is almost ready to start releasing volume 9 if they haven't started it already. Oh, hero! With that cliched line, Kazuya Soma found himself summoned to another world, and his adventure did not begin. After he presents his plan to strengthen the country economically and militarily, the king cedes the throne to him, and Soma finds himself saddled with ruling the nation. What's more, he's betrothed to the king's daughter now? In order to get the country back on its feet, Soma calls the wise, the talented, and the gifted to his side. 5 people gather before the newly crowned Soma. Just what are the many talents and abilities they possess? What path will his outlook as a realist take Soma and the people of his country down? A revolutionary transferred to another world administrative fantasy series starts here. So this one, I've read the first 3 volumes. We did do a podcast on Realist Hero because a lot of us really like this series. Admittedly, I have fallen behind on it. You know, I would like to get caught up. I liked it because, especially when it came out, I think we've seen a couple more series come out that have a slightly similar bend to them. But when this came out, it was one of the first isekai series that focused a lot more on building a kingdom and the sort of difficulties that would come with a new ruler bringing in new ideas, both within the country itself and with the neighboring countries. It looked at a lot of different aspects of world building that we don't really see very often in isekais. So to me, it was sort of a fresh sort of take on the whole genre at the time, because like I said, we really didn't have anything like it. It's obviously gone on to become very popular, and it's one of J-Novel Club's popular titles. So if you haven't checked this one out, you definitely should. Don't let the fact that it's an isekai. I see a lot of people on Twitter talk about how they're burned out on isekai and stuff like that. Sorry guys, but isekai apparently sells huge money, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But I can at least say that from what I have heard, from my own experience of the beginning of the series and from what I have heard from others, this is at least one that's definitely worth checking out. At number 5, with 7,420 copies sold, Volume 2 of Mahoka Koko no Reitose, Shiba Tatsuya Ansatsu Keikaku, or The Irregular at Magic High School Plan to Assassinate Tatsuya Shiba. So this one, of course, on the list for a couple weeks now. As I have stated numerous times, we do not have a license for this spin-off. We do have a license from Yen On for the parent series. The series set in a world where magic has become much more of a sort of technology and a science, and it focuses on students who are attending high schools where they are learning to become magicians, whether they are learning to actually become battle mages or whether they are learning to just sort of create spells and the technology that is used to help cast spells. And it becomes a very, it's a pretty heavy series, which is kind of funny. You would think it's just sort of like a school battle type thing, but I mean, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of, there's terrorist attacks in the series, like all sorts of stuff. This particular one, as I said, it is a spin-off of that series. The series has gone on well into the 20s. In fact, it's probably approaching almost 30 volumes now in Japan. And this is actually the first time it's had a spin-off printed. And this one is actually about a girl who is not magically gifted, but has become adept at assassinating magicians. And of course, the title makes it pretty obvious that her target in this series is Tatsuya. At number 4, with 8,193 copies sold, Volume 2 of Madan no O to Michelia, or Lord Marksman and Michelia. Or is it Michelia, Michelia? I would say Michelia. CH is usually hard in this particular sense when it's surrounded by vowels, at least in English. I have no idea whether that's the same in Japan. We do not have a license for these light novels. This is actually a sort of It's kind of interesting. So there is a series called Madan no O to Vanadis, which is Lord Marksman and Vanadis. Now, there was an anime of that, which we did have released in English. I believe, I'm trying to think if we have the manga. I think we have the manga in English for that one. We do not have the light novels. This is like an alternate timeline retelling of that story, where instead of the main character, you know, joining Vanadis, he joins this other girl who is Michaelia, or however you want to call her. So it says 2 years later, Brune and Zeicht are forging their alliance in order to counterattack against Muizinel's invasion. Tigre, the son of the current Earl of House Vorn, replacing his sick father in participating in his first battle. In this battle, Brune armies almost repels Muizinel army until the latter's ambush, resulting in its crushing defeat. In the nick of time, however, Brune is rescued by Mila, the Vanadis of Olmutz. With the reunion between Tigra and Milna, their new adventure begins. So, again, like, it's basically taking that same story idea, but replacing it. Because if I remember in Vanadis, Tigre becomes the slave of Vanadis, and in this one it sounds more like they're friends, and they have like a friendship, and they become partners. I'm not too sure. Again, like, you know what, because of course I've watched the anime, which I didn't mind, but there's no light novels available in English, so I'm not as knowledgeable about how that series works, and honestly, there's really not much information available on this in English. I've had to take it from a kind of gnarly Google translation. So if you have any more knowledge about this particular spin-off, or like why the author's doing this or whatever, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. At number 3, with 9,142 copies sold, Volume 2 of Gamers DLC. You know, I just realized that this is like the 3rd spin-off series on this list. It's like a third of the list this week is spin-offs. In any case, this one obviously the spin-off of the Gamers light novel series. We do not have either of them licensed in English. There was an anime based on the Gamers light novel series that streamed on Crunchyroll. For the main series, the romantic comedy light novel series centers on the gaming lives of various high school students who play video games, including Keita Amano, a lonely young man who loves video games, Karen Tendo, the beautiful president of the video game club, Chiaki Hoshinomori, who constantly fights with Keita, and Tasuka Urehara, who puts on a facade of being satisfied with his life in the real world, but he, in truth, loves video games. Again, you know what, I watched a little bit of the anime. It very slice of life. I mean, it's using obviously the fact that they're all gamers as sort of a commonality between them. And of course, you know, the sort of bit of a joke that who is the stereotypical gamer, who is not the stereotypical gamer, that kind of thing. I didn't get too deep into the series, so I really don't know where the story kind of goes. I'm guessing it's probably multiple love triangles, because that seems to be kind of the go-to for slice of life romantic comedy type series. I know like nothing about what this spin-off is though, and I even asked on Twitter if anybody had any idea, and I didn't get any takers on it. So if any of you watching this video actually know what the Gamers DLC spin-off light novel series is about, please let me know in the comments down below, because I know the first volume hit the top 10, this second volume has, so I'm pretty sure if there's a volume 3, it'll be in the top 10 and I'll have to talk about it again someday, so I'd love to know what it's all about. At number 2, with 9,634 copies sold, volume number 10 of Ryuo no Oshigoto, or, as we have it in English, the Ryu's work is never done. Now this one on my previous countdown, it's kind of funny. So, okay, so this is just the regular volume. I didn't do any combination of sales of regular and special edition. This is just volume 10, the regular edition, at number 2. Last week, that was the same thing. Volume number 2, the regular edition, was at number 2, but I made it my number 1 because there was also a special edition in the top 10. I added the sales together. So so this week, it kind of doesn't move places, even though technically in my countdown it drops from number 1. So in any case, this one about a 16-year-old boy who achieves the incredibly high title of Ryu in the shogi world. He's starting to get crushed under the pressure of it all, and you know, he's just like trying to maintain his title. And one day he comes home and finds this 9-year-old girl in his house, and she basically is like, yeah, you promised to let me be your apprentice. And of course he has zero memory of the whole thing, and it's about how the two of them end up becoming friends, and you know, sort of having a shogi master and apprentice relationship, and how her love of the game and sort of her unorthodox way of playing sort of reignites his passion for the game. There was an anime based on this series. It is being released in English from Bookwalker. Now you can only buy it from Bookwalker, which means it's only available digitally as well. So it's an exclusive for them. They've released up to the 6th volume in English at this time. I only read the first volume. You know, it certainly had some really cute elements to it. The way the shogi battles were written was really well done. I wouldn't think shogi battles would be super interesting in a book, but they were very, very well written. I just, you know, was a little turned off by the bit of lolly objectification that happened in the book, but as I understand it from other people, that sort of gets pushed aside and becomes much less of a thing as the series goes on, and that there's actually lots of good things in the series. I mean, it has placed very well in Kono Light Novel Ga Sugoi over the last couple of years. It was actually number 1 for a couple of years there on the Bunko list, so obviously lots of good stuff in this book. Even the Shogi Association of Japan recently recognized it for its great telling of shogi and stuff like that. So yeah, and you know, definitely a series that, from what I hear, gets much better from the first volume, and well, maybe one day I'll figure out a way to check out some more. Finally, at number 1, with 14,786 copies sold, volume number 11 of Yojo Senki, or as we have it in English, The Saga of Tanya the Evil. This one, of course, licensed for English release by Yen On. There's been an anime. There's a new anime movie coming out. I can't remember off the top of my head if they've announced a season 2 yet. I don't think they have, although I wouldn't be surprised if they do once the movie comes out. That'll probably be like a teaser thing at the end of the movie, I bet. This one, high above the blood and mud-soaked trenches, a young girl pits herself against army mages in high-stakes aerial duels with bullets, spells, and bayonets. Her name is Tanya de Gruchev, and she is the Devil of the Rhine, one of the greatest soldiers of the Empire has ever seen. But inside her mind lives a ruthless, calculating ex-salaryman who enjoyed a peaceful life in Japan until he woke up in a war-torn world. Reborn as a destitute orphaned girl with nothing to her name but memories of a previous life, Tanya will do whatever it takes to survive, even if she can find it only behind the barrel of a gun. I've read the first volume of this series. I'm way behind, and man, they are big. They are thick volumes. No joke. I'll give credit to the author. Clearly a great deal of research and effort has been put into creating sort of a realistic. It's sort of a retelling of the world wars of our world, but then kind of mashed up and changed and altered, and of course magic. But yeah, it really did feel like a really well-researched world, and that the military ideas and strategies, really based in the reality of how things have been done in our own world. But like I said, thick. Wow. It's kind of intimidating. I've had the second volume for a while now, and I have to admit, I look at it some days and I'm like, I could read and review 2 to 3 light novels for just that one, and so that's what I usually end up doing. But I should get back to it, because I really did like the first one. Obviously not a series for everybody. At times I found the first volume could be a little dry, especially if you're not interested in military theory or military strategies and stuff like that. The one interesting thing about this one, though, what they don't say in the synopsis, is that the whole thing is that this guy ends up in this world because basically he angered God, or this God figure, and it creates a whole other kind of interesting layer to the series, because, you know, how many isekais have we read, and it's always like God feels sorry for them, or God is really kind and benevolent. And in this one, God's like, oh, you lived in a world that was really peaceful, and that's why you're really not into religion, eh? Because you just never felt your life was threatened. You never felt like, okay, I know what we're going to do. You know, like, his life in this world is like a punishment. It's not a gift. So it's very, yeah, it's just a very interesting take, and the way it's written I found was kind of cool, because it's almost like the salaryman exists at times separate from Tanya. It's hard to explain. But you should check it out. It's actually really well done. I do know that the anime, from what I've been told, focused a lot more on the action aspect of the series, whereas the light novels have a lot more of sort of like the strategy and background of everything. In this video, I want to say a special thanks to Shotaku, Drone205, Patrick Mbaihi, Fixlab.com, Mirage, and Kidwang Ngayan, and all the rest of my supporters over on Patreon, who continue to help me get this channel running and keep it running, and to have hosting for the Light Novel podcast so we can have it on as many platforms as possible. So those are the top 10 light novels for February 18th to the 24th of 2019. What do you think? Are you familiar with some of the titles that I was talking about? Let me know in the comments down below. So I'm hoping to get these things caught up. I've got another one that I'm hoping to have up tomorrow. So again, thank you so much for joining me in this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.